Sí,
donde
ya.
hablan mayormente en español, aunque mis estudiantes en su mayoría hablan en inglés, pero algunos de ellos ya saben español desde antes y algunos han aprendido bastante durante su estadía en Colombia. Así que te agradezco mucho la presentación, agradezco mucho el espacio al Festival de la Imagen, a Felipe César Londoño, su director, y a todo el equipo que nos ayuda no solamente ahora, sino que nos ayudó durante el Field School que realizamos hace unos 2 o 3 meses en Bogotá con 16 estudiantes. No todos de la Universidad de Concordia, aunque el Field School estuvo organizado por la Universidad de Concordia en Montreal, pero también participaron estudiantes de la UNAM, la Universidad de aquí de Montreal, de las cuales cada uno va a ir mostrando los proyectos que estuvieron haciendo, avanzando durante el Field School. Así que yo voy a compartir la pantalla para contarles un poco la historia de estos Field School, cómo se realizan, qué es lo que hemos logrado hasta ahora, y luego cada uno de ellos va a ir presentando. Así que comienzo por contarles un poco. Tengo la pantalla, mi ventana tapándome lo que les estoy mostrando, así que estoy hablando un poco. Voy a comenzar un poco con los antecedentes. Me va a tomar unos cuantos minutos, pero creo que es muy importante porque es una posibilidad para muchos estudiantes de intercambio, como por ejemplo que estén hoy Christian North y Mike Cassidy allí. Son estudiantes que participaron en el Field School. Se pudieron seleccionar un par de estudiantes para que viajen. Hubiésemos querido que viajen todos, pero eso es imposible. Entonces se consiguió que 2 estudiantes pudiesen regresar, y en este caso fueron Mike y Christian, y se contó con el apoyo fundamental de la Embajada de Canadá en Colombia para poder hacer efectivo este viaje. Entonces les cuento un poco los antecedentes de otros Field School, porque se vienen haciendo hace muchos años. Por ejemplo, antes ya se han hecho varios Field Schools en Manizales, y quisiera mostrarles algunas de las imágenes y también de los proyectos que se han ido realizando en Manizales. Estas son algunas tomas que yo he hecho de la ciudad cuando se realizó
I kind of also like was trying to like investigate through the students and just conversation and like casual conversation here and there, with the students that we were like engaging with at the Teresa University, just asking them if what artists they would know, Latin American women artists, as you know, as students in South America studying art or studying in a creative field. And a lot of the students were only able to name me 2 Latin American women artists in the entire continent. So it was kind of striking, and also like it was very disappointing to me. And so I was like, I decided to sort of embark on that small, it's kind of like a big topic to disseminate and dissect. But I was like, I'm gonna see what I can do within these like 7 days that we have here while we're in Bogota. So I decided to photograph. I just sort of like embark on like a archive, because I know like as art history students studying in Montreal, it's a very like Eurocentric way of thinking. So, and the canon is very European, and therefore what we learn at school is still very European. And there's sort of like a way to do things, a way to learn the discipline, a way to write about things. So it's very European. And when you're talking about in terms of like art movements, like like modernism or performance art, or just contemporary art in general, there's kind of a lack. You don't learn about women artists a lot as pioneers, let alone you're going to learn about like Latin American women artists, pioneers in performance art, for example. So I sort of decided to embark on a developing archive that would be created by a means of me like photographing artworks and sort of going from there. So I went back to these places, and then I was able to photograph the works of 5 Latin American women artists, which you will now see through the photographs that I'll show you. So this is the first one, the first artist that I sort of discovered while on my trip. And it's actually really, it's just, yeah. So this is one of the artists that I discovered because she was having actually a huge retrospective at the MAMU Museum in Bogota, which lasted from February up until literally the last week of July. So it was kind of like meant to be. But yeah, Cecilia Vicuña, I had never heard of her before, but she is literally one of the biggest Latin American women artists ever. She has a huge range of work. She works in like a variety of disciplines. She's a writer, she's a poet, she's a photographer, she's a weaver, she kind of like delves into a lot of like areas, but I had never heard of her, and it's kind of wild to think that you'd never heard of such a person with such a like wide array of work available. So yeah, this is one of her weavings in response to the ongoing Vietnam War that was going on in the 70s. And so as her positionality as a woman who was like sort of she's Chilean, so she had to leave her country, her native country, because of the political situation of the country, the dictatorship. So as a woman who not only knows, marginalization of being a woman, an artist, and a person who has to flee their own country because of political persecution, she knew a lot about that, and she had a lot to say on, the status and kind of like giving a voice to the people from other countries who are experiencing the same thing. So this is one of her textile works from the 70s. And then this one is, I really love this piece. I photographed it sideways just for aesthetic purposes, but it actually, it's like they hang from the ceiling. So these were hanging from the MAMU ceiling in the museum. And they're supposed to, like sort of mimic the menstrual clots and like blood that come out monthly for people who menstruate. And yeah, so a lot of her work is like feminist, and a lot of her work is very political. This is a trend that you see in American women artists, and that's a lot of the themes in their work are, like time, memory, pain, but also just like feminist and political inclinations, I guess, is very potent, and that would make sense given their life experiences and such. So this is another one in response to the dictatorship and situation, and a response to the killing of Salvador Allende. This is a sculpture piece, which they were able to sort of preserve really well in the MAMU when I saw it, because I saw like archival images of the thing. When it's like developing, it was a developing work for like 30 plus years, as you can see, and she completed it in 2019. So yeah, you can see that she has like she meditates over her work a lot. So like a lot of her pieces would take like 20 years, 30 years to complete, just because of the nature of, I guess, her being selective and also like things changing as time passing. So her process is very, very interesting. Marta Cecilia Granados is a Colombian artist. She's a graphic designer. And this is a lithograph that I took a photograph of. And all the photographs that you're seeing are also like, they're the photographs of the works, but they're also a little bit manipulated in the sense of like editing wise or like warping wise. So there is that aspect that makes it sort of me giving my artistic input into the work itself. So like, yes, I'm creating a photographic archive, but it's also like, it's a series of artworks that sort of become the artwork of themselves in a way. So this is a lithograph that was in the National Museum. She worked in the 80s. I think, yeah, she's still active today, I think. And this was also in response, as you can see on the poster, it says Colombia es libertad, which is Colombia is liberty. Yeah, so again, another political work. This is Maria Teresa Hincapi de Zulaga. This was actually such an interesting video because it was the only performance work that I saw in the Museo Nacional. And it was done by a woman, a feminist artist who's woman. And yeah, so I think, and this work specifically, Virgilina, she kind of does like very like mundane, like casual tasks that are like, labeled domestic things to do, like cooking, cleaning. And then she does them in a way that she performs them very angrily. So yeah. And I took a photograph of and they were actually showing it on like a little TV in the museum. So it was very weird the way that they were like presenting it, and they weren't really drawing attention to it, and they didn't really provide any extra info. So I feel like they don't even make it accessible or for like interesting for the viewer. So it's also interesting. It's a means of thinking of like how are they presenting the work done by women artists in their own museums. Doris Salcedo is one of the artists that people were able to name me in Bogota. She's even known here. I know that in my most recent art history class, they like the TA, she's aware, she's doing her entire like PhD paper on this artist. So she's one of the most well-known artists actually as a Latin American woman artist in the area. And this work, Fragmentos, it's actually a piece of like a larger, huger piece, sculpture that was done in response to to sort of the agreement that ended the FARC in Colombia. But it wasn't done in response, and I think it's like melted gun and like violent, guns. So like she kind of like amalgamated this like the metal and sort of made a piece to make a statement on the violence that at the end of the day women were subject to because of the war between the FARC and the government, and then also like because sexual violence that they were subject to by men who were involved on both sides. And then this is Paz Errázuriz, another Chilean artist. Like Cecilia, she was also forced to leave Chile. And this is part of her series that sort of in Chile, where she kind of goes into these houses that were, they were basically like brothels where trans women worked illegally. And as you can imagine, in a dictatorship, this is probably like the most illegal thing ever. And a lot of the photographs are photographs of her trans friends and queer friends who in the area were doing the most they could do to survive. And these roles weren't developed until later on because she couldn't risk the idea of developing in her own homeland. So she had to sort of outsource that and wait like decades before developing the film. She's actually also, again, one of the most famous and one of the most prominent Latin American women photographers ever, but like common canon won't include her. Like I'm a photo student and I've never heard of her in my like 3 years of learning photography and history in the North American context. So I think it's very, very telling just to see where and how the art canon still values. It's still very Eurocentric. Like her photos are very much alike, and she was doing this work in the 80s, and they're kind of reminiscent of like Nan Goldin, like a white American photographer who is included in the canon. She's one of the most famous photographers and women photographers in general. who also took photos of her day-to-day in New York with her queer friends. And you see her, but you're not seeing other photographers like that's included in that canon. So I think it was very important that I included her work in my project. And yeah, it was just interesting to see this work. And with Past too, all her work is kind of like re-emerging because decades of like being closed and the negatives not being developed, it's kind of like experiencing like a renaissance for her work right now. So yeah, so that's my project. And yeah, I just wanted to leave a last little note on where like, yeah, I guess the field school was really effective in terms of like giving me kind of like stirring me with this idea that I kind of embarked on and I want to continue as a photographic series, and also like a written component as well in the near future, which is really fun. And like just like taking how I can take this and sort of this idea that I sort of like started this summer and sort of like apply it to all of my art historical thinking and writing that I'm following now as like a undergraduate student in this academic field. So yeah, it was really useful. And I think there's a lot of like, it was very successful in terms of like having this new body of work to work with, and these new ideas and these new concepts that I think are really important to add to the canon. So yeah.
Thank you, Xaviera. Thank you so much for your presentation. I also want to thank the University Tadeo Lozano, because they were not only supporting her project, but also lending the photo labs and making really facilitando el acceso a equipamiento en toda la universidad. So thanks so much for that. So we are going to the next presentation now. And please, to everyone, put your stopwatch so we can keep things on time. The next presentation is by Theo, Mika, and Mike, and William is not here, but I'm sure they will present the project and will include him in what they were doing in Bogota just a short while ago. Welcome. Welcome, Mika.
Hola. Hello, everybody. How's everybody doing?
Hello, Michael.
Hello. Thanks for having us.
Okay, so we still miss Theo.
Yeah. So my name's Mika. My group members are Theo and Mike. They're also here somewhere. Yeah. So I'm gonna start by just talking a bit about just the overview of the project, basically, just to give some general context. Everybody can kind of get a feel for when I pass it off to Theo and eventually Mike. So the intention of our project is to invite people to reflect on their place within the larger cycle of life. And this is done through our project's emphasis on the tradition of food. So where humanity used to eat only what was local and in season, now in Western society, we are in large part disconnected from the process of where our food comes from. We don't have to know what we're eating anymore because we have the convenience of grocery stores and restaurants in which foods grown from all over the world are being shipped to be sold or prepared. Further, interacting with food in this disconnected way doesn't seem like the best way forward. There are potential repercussions on both the world and the individuals as a product of living disconnected to life's natural processes. To varying degrees, we are all aware that what we put in our bodies influences how we feel cognitively and physically. So you could imagine something grown or raised in a more natural, fertile environment without the stress of chemicals is generally going to have more nutritional value than something that was grown unnaturally with the use of chemicals. And resultantly, the product raised in the more natural environment is going to fuel our bodies more efficiently and more wholesomely. I think we could also imagine that what was grown or raised in the unnatural environment where chemicals and cruel conditions of life were implemented would also have an effect on the well-being of plants and animals. large scale, disrupting the natural process of life. I feel that this momentum of Western society has disconnected us from our humanity. Yes, we are consumers, we are on the top of the food chain, there's no denying that, but to live disconnected from these ramifications seems unwise. Gastrodio, our project, invites participants to be conscious of the fact that we exist within the whole by following the tradition of food and sourcing local, ethically grown in-season vegetables from local farmers, and then using those ingredients and those vegetables. Theo, Mike, and myself have then created a multi-medium, harmonious sensory dining experience. So there are three main mediums that we use to articulate the vegetables. And the three mediums are gastronomy, audio, and an audio-visual component as well. And each group member kind of has their own respective medium in which we explore articulating the ingredients. And similarly to the way of life and the process of growing, each component relies on the last in order to function smoothly. So the creation of the food depends on getting the ingredients. The creation of the audio depends on the food, and the creation of the visual depends on the audio. So my respective role or my respective medium is gastronomy. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about my specific process now before handing it off to Theo. So unfortunately, obviously given the context and the situation, I can't present to you any food today, but yeah, like I said, I'm going to talk a bit about my process. So basically it starts with, in whatever location we are presenting in, building a connection with local farmers and kind of just learning about the culture and what people eat there and what ingredients you can get that are local and native. So when we presented in Colombia, I fortunately was naturally connected to a lot of people through UTADEO, a lot of students who had a lot of knowledge about native foods in the area. And they gave me a lot of good information about where I could find it, markets and whatnot. So from there, I would start to think about the dishes. Now that I have the ingredients, I can kind of start to conceptualize what kind of dishes I would want to make. Specifically, for each dish, the intention is to let the ingredients shine through the flavor palette, to really accentuate the fact that the project is about the ingredients. The ingredients are an origin point of sorts. So to give some context and kind of just talk a bit more about Colombia. In Colombia, I found out that plantain, coffee, and queso were especially important ingredients to the culture and the region, Bogota. So I used them to make a rendition of strudel in which the coffee, the queso, and the plantain were the filling. And I'll show you a quick picture of that. Just going to share my screen here. Hoping everybody can see that. But yeah, that's kind of my part of the presentation, the gastronomy. And I'm going to pass it off to Theo, who's actually to my left right now, to talk a little bit about the audio side of things.
Hi everyone, thanks for coming. I'm here to talk about Biodata Sonification, which is the aspect of our dining experience or gastrodio that allows you to hear what you're eating, which is a very exciting thing that we were able to achieve in our time in Colombia, or very short time. Basically, I'll start by explaining what sonification is. It's a method in which sound is used as a representation of data. So in our example, the data is electrical signals that are received from an ingredient of choice, for example, a banana. Essentially, what happens is these signals that are achieved by this device, received by this device, are converted into musical composition or to be manipulated live as a musical performance. The way that this is achieved is the measuring of microcurrents, so very, very small amounts of electricity fluctuating between two probes. So we see we have two wires here, here to here. Basically, the banana is completing an electrical circuit. So the biological makeup of the banana is going to affect the way that it behaves and the way that the electrical signals are passing from here to here. This is different for every single ingredient, and the results vary, and you can see this a lot in the music that results. And basically, what this device is doing, what it's attached to, is it's a circuit designed to
So just to wrap things up, I hope we've elucidated the potentials of this project. Is basically we have audio visual pieces going on here. Like we have both the visuals set up ideally on a projector with the audio playing throughout a whole 3-course meal. So Mika, did you want to say anything to conclude?
I feel like I covered what I wanted to cover. Yeah, I want to thank Image Fest for having us, and thank Ricardo as well for the opportunity to present. We all appreciate it.
Well, thank you so much for the presentation, Mika, Michael, Theo. We'll see some of you in class soon. So
Ricardo, you're muted.
Now, can you hear me? Because here is unmuted. Okay, so again, thank you, Mike, Michael, Mika, Michael, Theo. It was an amazing presentation. It was great to have that project here. You know, it's always a surprise because when you're leading a project or a field school, and you cannot, I don't want to ask every single detail about what you're doing, but at the same time, you want to have like good surprises, and sometimes you don't know what's going on. So I'm happy this was one of the really good surprises to see how this was working. So let's move because we still have several presentations. So we'll go now. Thank you again. And let's go to Ava for her presentation. Thank you so much to all of you. Welcome, Ava.
Hi.
Yes, a little bit louder, please.
I should talk louder?
Yes, perfect.
Okay, cool. Let me share my screen. Hello, everybody. My name is Ava Bergson. I am a student at Concordia, and I was thrilled to be a part of my first field school this summer. And I'd come to Columbia with a project in mind, and it evolved in a direction I kind of, I don't think I really expected it to. It was definitely influenced by my stay in Columbia. So I would like to hold your hand through my process of that. So this is my project, which I've called Imagen, which means infinity in the Yiddish language. And so far I've produced 3 paintings, but I have 5 canvases. So I hope to produce 5. So the idea of the composition of my paintings was originally inspired by this piece that I did earlier in the year, which I called Chicken and Egg. And it's basically a mathematics sequence of circles bouncing off each other and going into the middle of the composition. And I drew in heads and limbs, and as you can see, it's a mother holding a child. And deeper into the circle, the pattern continues. So this idea of the arms of the mother creating the circle of the composition led me to think about my own relationship with my mother and what she taught me and what community she brought me up in, which is the Ashkenazi Jewish community, mostly cultural, but a theme that I've really brought from my growing up was the element of dance in celebration in this community. So there's a picture of me at a music festival right here. That's me. And there's a lot of circular, like joining together by hands or by arms and moving in circular motions. And of course, this is like common amongst a lot of cultural dances, but this was kind of the lens that I was approaching it from. So these are some sketches that I did, kind of orienting 2 figures in this kind of composition. And actually putting paint down on the canvas, what I would first do was cut a piece of unstretched canvas, and then I would prime a circle in the middle so that that part is flat and the rest is kind of dissipates, wrinkles out. And I will work into the canvas with a raw umber, a dark brown color. to map out the sketch. And then I'll go in with a raw titanium, and I'll kind of go back and forth with the two mediums, which unveils this really interesting gray area between the two tones, which almost has a blue hue. So I was only using two colors. So I keep going back and forth to deepen the detail, and then I would blacken the negative space. So I did this with the three paintings that I did. The first of which is I called La Salsa, which is two figures in a salsa formation. As you can see, this is the lead with his hand right here, and this is the follow with her hand right here. And he's kind of dipping her sort of abstractly. And I intended to evoke the circular composition with these paintings to demonstrate movement. So imagine that they're could be seen from any angle and that they're spinning around and around. This was the first one that I created in Colombia. And this is the second one that I called Imagen David, because the figures create a Star of David inside, which is also meant to be seen from any angle. And I was thinking about how to display these paintings, and I decided to use the concept of the chuppah because the paintings were on a piece of unstretched canvas, which is basically a piece of fabric. So chuppah is a piece of fabric held above a bride and a groom, traditionally at a Jewish wedding. And it kind of symbolizes the ascension of holiness, it symbolizes like the heavens, or like a gesture to God. However, I kind of see it in this project as a gesture to a greater whole, like individuals standing under something. If like there can be individuals standing under the same thing, and that kind of gestures that they are part of a bigger whole, one bigger thing together. So I played around with how to make this happen exactly, because they can't just suspend by themselves. And in Bogota, they gave me these 4 giant slabs of white wood, and I decided to tack them to the top. And it really turned out in a way that I wasn't expecting, and it looked the light filtering through the paintings looked very intentional, like almost like in a mosque. Because the light a lot in the Abrahamic religion symbolizes the presence of God, which isn't really relevant to my project unless it's symbolic, because I don't consider this a religious project, just saying. So I, with this unintentional composition and installation of my paintings, I thought that it evoked a cathedral, godly, architectural feeling. And it really reminded me of the really thin and narrow streets of Old Jerusalem, and it kind of felt like a portal or an entrance to another world. So if I could just move for a minute. In Colombia, I wasn't sure that people knew exactly what Yiddish dance was, or even what klezmer music was. So I decided to invite people to dance a little bit with me. If I could just show 3 short videos. Here we go. All right, So that's just a clip of the presentation in Bogota, which was a lot of fun for me. I'd never led so many people in a group dance before. And speaking of where I learned how to do these dances is I was invited to present some of my artwork at the Klez Canada Ashkenazi Music Festival in the Laurentians this summer. So the 3 paintings, I attached dowels to them and I hung them like this at the festival for people to see, which was very relevant to the theme of Yiddish dance and movement and connection. So that's where it went. And currently I'm working on a similar composition, but with graphite and charcoal on paper, so a different medium. And I intend to kind of push the boundaries of the circle and make it bigger. So now this small composition is a part of a bigger whole. So we'll see. But thank you so much for listening. And I'm really honored to be back in Bogota for a short time right now. And I miss you all. And thank you so much for giving me this opportunity. Thanks, Ricardo.
Thank you so much, Eva. It was also amazing to end the field school with people dancing. Was not something I was expecting either. So I think it was really, really interesting, really good. We were doing a lot of things during the field school that were not so easy to make here. Maybe if we propose the same activities here, it won't be that easy to realize those kind of things. Okay, so we still have 3 presentations, but one presentation, the next one is by, there will be 3 presentations, but the next one is not an old student coming back to the field school. This is from my colleague, Professor Simon Pierre Gourde, who is a professor at UCAM University. I mean, I want to emphasize this collaboration because it's not easy. As I said at the very beginning, I mean, this was organized by Concordia University. It's an Anglophone university, but UCAM is a Francophone university, and doing projects together, I mean, traveling together is not something usual, and joining also the people from UTADEO and students from UTADEO was really an amazing experience. And Simon Pierre, I'm always grateful because all of the preparation, the feedback, the support that he was doing, and he was inviting a lot of students to participate, and that was making possible this adventure in Colombia. Thank you so much and welcome, Simon Pierre.
Hello, Ricardo. Hello, everybody. Do you hear me well?
Yes.
Okay. So I want to put the emphasis on this idea of collaboration that we have. We know each other with Hexagram since maybe 2006, somewhere like on this side, and we are both part of GRMS. So I will begin my presentation. So can you see the PowerPoint?
Yes, perfect.
You still hear me? Okay. So this idea of working together and plus with the physical, you're working, Ricardo, with university in Mexico and Colombia. So this idea that we are experiencing, and this is why I'm here finally, that you are in teaching in Concordia, English speaking, I'm teaching in UCAM, French speaking, and how this happened with the time, I would say bottom up evolution, and how now we have a kind of research creation ecology in universities environments. So my name is Simon Pierre Gourde, University of Quebec at Montreal, UCAM. So UCAM Concordia and GRMS, I will explain later, and Hexagram. So Ricardo and I and the other members of GRMS that were we were collaborating for the field school to have our students from UCAM and some from Columbia. So we are all part of this this structure. I would say it's a mindset, but it's also something that was growing up naturally. So Hexagram is a network for research creation in art, culture, design, and technology. So our members in the GRMS, we were part of those two universities. We worked together and we developed GRMS and we developed also Hexagram. So we're part of GRMS member, but we're also member of Hexagram. We have two languages, but we share the same university culture. Both have a tradition of innovation, research in new communication, art, media, technology since early 70s. And both have some teacher that were pioneer in this era in Montreal. So in Hexagram, besides UQAM and Concordia, we have a few universities in Montreal, School of Technology, University at Chicoutimi, Abitibi, and University Laval, and a few from McGill University. But mainly, it's conglomerate Concordia UQAM. So I will not name everybody, but just to show that the research group on sound mediatization, that's the best translation I could have for you today. So we have also associated members, and we have an international institutional members, Rodrigo Sigal, Francisco Colosanto from CEMAS, Centro Mexicano para la Música y las Artes Sonoras, y también Enes Unam. Excuse me, I'm switching Spanish for a few words. Okay, so GRMS, yes, we look forward on the research on sound, but sound is in a global point of view. The mission, so we study sound in every context. We explore the different relationships, and our mission is that we can together develop research projects, provide graduate students with access to internship, professional development, research team, also introduce undergraduate students to research, and finally the GRMS create links and partnership with the art community in Montreal elsewhere. I think the field school in Bogota was a good example. For example, I think Jacinthe is a graduate student, and we have also undergraduate student, and I think you have the same on Concordia side, if I understand well. So this idea of always having the students together with us is very in the center of our activities. And so kind of activities that we have, because it's an idea to study, make research, but you need to go out to reach the public, do some things together. So M&M, Montreal New Music, in collaboration with Contemporary Music Society of Quebec, GRMS, Hexagram, and Matra Lab from Concordia. And we have a great night called La Grande Nuit, kind of 6-8 hours concert. Colloquium. We have also study days, residencies. For example, there was a student from Morelia that came in Montreal, and we had some students in Morelia. And the field school is also in this idea of exchange and residencies. For example, in 2018, you can see my friend Ricardo on the right. I am on the left. And in the middle, the two great Mexican composer. So you have a guy from UQAM, another from Concordia, and two Mexicans. So this is the idea of GRMS in creating this this way of working together. We had some very special speakers. Nicolas Isherwood, that was Karin Stockhausen main senior for over 23 years. And also we, this is our last way of doing things, so to instead of having some studies or colloquium with theoretical presentation and then a concert or presentation of performance, we mix together. And I will go, we'll do some jumps, but just to give you an idea. And also you will see the laboratory with the 32 speakers. So when
une conduite d'écoute, j'ai connecté ça avec la théorie des affects. Et puis l'idée, dans grosso modo, de façon tout à fait grossière, un affect, c'est qu'on est affecté. Et puis.
So for example, here my friend, my colleague Louis-Claude Paquin, is not a composer. He's more from philosophy, but he teach a lot and he direct a lot of students in research creation. So when my music was playing, he was there was the text going on together. So what we did, I told him, okay, I like that you're not a composer, you don't know about it. Just listen, and what are your feeling? What are the feeling about the music? So that's the way we did. Oh, excuse me. Okay.
Quelque chose.
Then you have this student, Jane. I forgot the last name. Can you help me, Ricardo?
But what's the most important thing today is to share with you one of our.
Casey.
No, it was Jen.
Yes,
Reimer. Jen Reimer.
Yes, and in the background was Casey. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. So she was performing and then talking about the music. Then we had Rodrigo Sigal and Francisco talking about the new tool. Then this students, and this is Gabrielle. She was part of field school in Bogota once.
In Manizales. Yes,
in Manizales. Okay.
Okay. Same as Casey that was in the previous movie. Yes.
So she, instead of only talking about performance with her body, because she has a leg a little bit shorter, so she's doing the performance.
Je parle de la pièce Native Alien.
And then she exchanged with the public and she talked about the theoretical side of the performance. And then Sandeep Bhagwati. Then we had an in-situ performance using the building and the mechanic for the air with my colleague Eric Letourneau. There were some speakers in the event.
I am not entitled to what I have.
Creating different kind of counter.
Here we have Maestro Tafara. Students working with the sonification of data also. It's not banana, but it's sonification anyway.
De présenter essentiellement des différents projets de recherche
Alexandre,
en me concentrant particulièrement sur une entité performative qui a émergé.
So now I will almost terminate. Ricardo, don't worry. I'm looking at my my time. It's going fast. Okay.
Yes.
So this is the multiphonic laboratory on the mezzanine. It's smaller. That's where we develop the pieces and do the experiment with the image. So with 32 speakers, hemispheric diffusion dome. Here we have Ricardo's class. I think you are somewhere on the left in the front.
Yes.
Multiphonic composition class. We did a lot, and then we have your piece visual music organic in the big hall that we call Agora, and you can see the rig where we have the speakers to do the dome, and that's it.